If physical labor and hard work were the true secrets to building wealth, the wealthiest people on this planet would be construction workers, overnight nurses, and line cooks. But they are not. If you look closely at how the world actually operates, you will notice a brutal irony. The people who work the most grueling, exhausting physical hours are usually the ones living closest to the edge of bankruptcy. From the moment you were born, you have been indoctrinated into a massive, meticulously designed systemic lie. It is a lie that has been repeated so many times by your parents, your teachers, and your society that you have accepted it as a fundamental law of nature. That lie is the belief that trading your time and your sweat is the path to financial freedom. It is not. It is a script designed to keep you obedient, compliant, and fundamentally exhausted. Let us deconstruct the blueprint you were handed. You were told to go to school, get good grades, secure a safe corporate job, put your head down, and grind. You were told to save 10% of your paycheck, put it in a retirement account, and wait for 40 years. And maybe, just maybe, when your body is broken, your youth is gone, and you are too old to actually enjoy the money, you will be allowed to retire. I need you to understand that this is not a blueprint for your financial freedom. This is an operating manual for a machine that requires a constant supply of cheap, reliable cogs. The system does not want you to be wealthy. The system wants you to be highly functional. It needs you to be just smart enough to push the buttons, pull the levers, code the software, and do the paperwork. But it also needs you to be tired enough that you never have the energy to question the architecture of the factory itself. Think about the mechanics of society. If everyone understood how to actually build leverage and compound wealth, who would pour the coffee at 6 in the morning? Who would clean the corporate office buildings at midnight? Who would willingly sit in bumper-to-bumper traffic for 2 hours a day just to sit inside a gray cubicle for another 8? The elite class needed a religion to keep the masses running endlessly on the hamster wheel, and that religion is the cult of hard work. In my decades of observing the financial markets and watching how capital flows globally, I have realized one profound, undeniable truth. The most successful investors, the true masters of capital, look incredibly lazy to the outside world. If you look at how the greatest fortunes in history were built, they were not built by CEOs screaming into telephones and sleeping 3 hours a night. The people who compound billions of dollars spend the vast majority of their days sitting in quiet rooms, reading financial reports, thinking deeply, and essentially doing nothing. Meanwhile, the average middle manager is working 60 to 80 hours a week, answering emails at midnight, losing their hair from stress, and drowning in credit card debt. The man sitting in the quiet room reading a book makes billions. The man sweating in the office is living paycheck to paycheck. Why does this massive discrepancy exist? Because society deliberately confuses effort with leverage. You are paid based on the difficulty of replacing you, not the difficulty of your job. Digging a ditch with a spoon is incredibly hard, exhausting work, but it creates absolutely zero economic value. The lie of hard work is incredibly insidious because it preys on your sense of morality. We are taught from a young age that suffering is noble, that bleeding for a paycheck is a badge of honor. You see people wearing their exhaustion like a trophy. They brag to their friends, "I worked 80 hours this week," as if voluntarily entering a state of modern indentured servitude is something to be proud of. But the market is entirely cold and rational. The market does not care about your sweat. The market does not care about your lack of sleep. The market only cares about leverage, ownership, and output. Most people use their physical and mental exhaustion as a psychological shield. They use the state of being constantly busy to avoid looking at the terrifying reality that their financial strategy is fundamentally broken. When you are constantly moving, constantly stressed, and constantly answering messages, you feel productive. But it is an illusion. You are running furiously on a treadmill, burning massive amounts of energy, but you are staying in the exact same spot. It is much easier to just reply to another email, fill out another spreadsheet, or take another overtime shift than it is to sit in a silent room and confront the terrifying fact that your entire economic model is a failure. True masters of capital do not trade their time for a paycheck. They trade capital to build and acquire systems. They spend their days acquiring assets, businesses, and equities that work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without ever asking for a raise or taking a sick day. They aggressively protect their free time and their cognitive bandwidth so that when a massive opportunity arrives, their minds are sharp and ready to execute. If you truly want to escape the poverty loop, the very first thing you must do is completely shatter the illusion that hard work alone will save you. It will not. It will only break your body and spirit. You must stop playing the game by the rules written by the people who employ you. In order to break free, we must first look at the brutal mathematical reality of why your salary is designed to keep you trapped. We must examine the lethal trap of linear income. Let us put aside emotion for a moment and look at the cold, unforgiving mathematics of your paycheck. We are taught to view a salary as a stepping stone to financial freedom. But mathematically speaking, a salary is not a ladder. It is a cage. And the invisible bars of this cage are forged from a very simple, very lethal linear equation. Your income equals your hourly rate multiplied by the hours you work. On the surface, this transaction seems perfectly fair. You give your time and you get your money. But if your ultimate goal is true wealth, accepting this equation is mathematical self-sabotage. Why? Because the variable of time has a hard, absolute, non-negotiable ceiling. There are exactly 24 hours in a day, no matter who you are. You need to sleep, you need to eat, and you need to commute. Even if you operate like a machine, you can only realistically bill for 12, maybe 14 hours a day before your biological hardware completely collapses. Because your input is strictly capped by the laws of physics, your financial output is strictly capped as well. You might think the solution to this trap is simply to increase your hourly rate. You go back to school, you take on student debt, and you get a master's degree. You become a senior software engineer, a specialized doctor, or a high-powered corporate lawyer. You increase your hourly rate to $200, $300, or even $500 an hour. You buy a nice luxury car, you move into a high-rise apartment, and society applauds you. You think you have escaped the trap, but you have not. You have merely upgraded the interior decorating of your prison cell. You have become what we call a highly paid slave. If the corporate lawyer stops arguing cases, the income drops to zero. If the surgeon's hand trembles and they can no longer operate, the income vanishes instantly. Your survival and the survival of your expensive lifestyle is still entirely dependent on the continuous, uninterrupted surrender of your physical time. The moment you stop running on the wheel, the money stops flowing. Society tells you the answer is to work even harder. They tell you to start a side hustle, drive for Uber on the weekends, or sell cheap dropship trinkets on the internet. But what are you really doing? You are simply opening up a second cage. You are trading the tiny fraction of free time you have left for a few extra pennies, further exhausting your mind and your body. Now, let us look at how the global system actively punishes this linear equation. The economic architecture is deliberately designed to heavily penalize people who trade time for money. And it does this with ruthless efficiency through the tax code. The tax system is not a neutral set of rules meant to be fair to everyone. It is a behavioral manipulation tool. It rewards what the government wants to encourage, and it punishes what it wants to exploit. As a standard W-2 wage earner, you are the most heavily taxed entity on the planet. You pay the absolute highest marginal tax rates. And worse, you are taxed before you even see a single dollar of your own labor. Your employer deducts the government's share, sends it away, and you are left with the scraps to try and build a life. But look closely at the true capital allocators. They do not earn standard linear income. They earn capital gains, dividends, and business profits. They hold assets that appreciate over time, and they borrow against those assets completely tax-free. The system mathematically rewards those who own the machine while brutally taxing those who merely operate it. The harder you work for a paycheck, the more aggressively the system bleeds you dry. And then there is the silent, invisible thief, inflation. While you are begging your boss for a pathetic 3% annual raise, central banks are continuously printing money. They are devaluing your purchasing power by 5, 7, or even 10% every single year. You are literally working harder and harder just to become steadily poorer. It is the exact equivalent of trying to sprint up a downward moving escalator while wearing a backpack full of rocks. This is the cold mathematical reality of wage slavery. Your time is physically capped, your taxes are legally maximized, and your savings are being quietly eroded by inflation. No amount of hard work, no amount of overtime, and no amount of side hustles can overcome a mathematical formula that is fundamentally broken from the start. You simply cannot outwork bad math. The greatest fortunes in the history of the world were not built by negotiating a slightly higher salary. They were not built by working double shifts on the weekends. They were built by individuals who understood that the only way to achieve financial escape velocity is to completely disconnect your income from your physical time. You must transition your life from a linear equation to an exponential one. You are currently playing a game of addition, while the wealthy are playing a game of multiplication. Every hour you work adds a fixed, tiny amount to your bank account. But the elite focus on building systems, acquiring assets, and deploying capital that multiply their net worth while they are sleeping. But making this vital shift from a laborer to an owner requires something that the daily grind aggressively destroys. It requires the mental energy to step back, observe the entire board, and wait for the perfect moment to strike. It requires the exact opposite of the frantic, chaotic busyness that modern society praises. To break the chains of linear income, you must adopt a completely different mental model. You must stop swinging at every minor distraction. And this brings us to one of the most powerful frameworks in the world of investing. A framework that separates the frantic amateurs from the apex predators. We need to discuss the philosophy of the fat pitch and why doing absolutely nothing is often the most profitable decision you will ever make. To truly break free from the trap of linear income, you must fundamentally change your relationship with action. You must learn one of the most difficult skills in the modern world, the absolute discipline of doing nothing. In the world of wealth creation, motion does not equal progress. In fact, in the highest levels of capital allocation, physical action is often inversely correlated to financial return. To understand this, we need to look at a mental model I have used throughout my entire investing career. It is a philosophy I borrowed not from a Wall Street banker, but from a legendary baseball player named Ted Williams. Ted Williams was arguably the greatest hitter in the history of baseball. And his secret was not just raw physical talent. His secret was a ruthless, almost terrifying level of discipline. He wrote a book called The Science of Hitting, and in it he divided the baseball strike zone into 77 smaller squares. He mapped out his exact batting average for every single square. He knew that if he swung at a pitch in his absolute sweet spot, the exact center of his strike zone, he would bat over 400. But he also knew that if he swung at pitches on the low outside corner, even if they were technically strikes, his average would plummet to 230. His strategy was brutal, but simple. He would stand at the plate, bat on his shoulder, and simply watch the pitcher throw ball after ball. He would watch good pitches, decent pitches, and bad pitches fly right past him. The crowd would scream at him to swing. The media would criticize him for being too passive. The pressure to do something was immense. But he refused to swing until the ball crossed his absolute sweet spot. He waited patiently, enduring the booing and the criticism until the pitcher finally made a mistake and threw the fat pitch. Now, investing and wealth building are exactly like baseball, but with one massive unfair advantage. In the game of capital, there are no called strikes. You can stand at the plate of the global economy for years with your bat resting comfortably on your shoulder. The market will constantly throw opportunities at you every single day. The market will scream, here is a hot new crypto coin, here is a real estate deal, here is a trendy tech stock. Thousands of pitches will fly past you. The media will panic. Your friends will brag about their quick profits. The crowd will roar, demanding that you swing your bat, demanding that you join the frenzy. But you do not have to swing. You can stand there for 5 years completely motionless, hoarding your capital, protecting your peace of mind, and nobody will call you out. You only swing when a business you perfectly understand is offered at a price that makes mathematical sense. You wait for the fat pitch. The tragedy of the working class and the middle class is that they do not wait for the fat pitch. The working class swings at absolutely everything. You swing at every single email that hits your inbox. You swing at every pointless Zoom meeting. You swing at every unreasonable request from your boss to work late on a Friday night. You swing at driving an Uber on the weekends just to make an extra $50. You swing at the latest internet side hustle because a guru on social media told you it was the secret to success. You are constantly swinging, constantly sweating, and constantly striking out. And because you are forced to swing at every minor distraction just to survive, you are in a permanent state of cognitive depletion. You have zero mental energy left. So when the real opportunity finally comes along, a massive market crash, a generational shift in technology, a chance to buy a cash-flowing asset at a severe discount, you do not even see it. Or worse, you see it, but you are too exhausted, too stressed, and too terrified to take the swing. Wall Street and the corporate world are obsessed with motion. They want you trading stocks every millisecond because they make money on the transaction fees, not on your success. Your employer wants you constantly busy, constantly typing, and constantly moving because they are renting your physical time. They confuse activity with achievement, but true wealth is obsessed with precision. I make perhaps one or two major investment decisions a year. Sometimes I go years without buying a single major company. I am perfectly content to sit on tens of billions of dollars of cash, doing absolutely nothing, reading a book in my office, while the rest of the financial world runs around like headless chickens, because I know that eventually the market will panic, the system will break, blood will run on the streets, and excellent assets will be heavily discounted. When that day comes, the people who spent the last 3 years hustling and swinging at every bad pitch will be broke, exhausted, and terrified. Their cognitive bandwidth will collapse. But the capital allocator who waited patiently will step up to the plate with a fully rested mind, a massive pile of cash, and swing heavily at the fattest pitch of the decade. He wins because his mind is fresh while everyone else's is broken by the hustle. To break out of the poverty loop, you must ruthlessly eliminate the meaningless motion from your life. You must learn the incredibly difficult art of sitting completely still. But why is it so hard to sit still? Why do people feel the constant, desperate need to keep running on the wheel, even when they are making high salaries? Because the system has constructed another trap. A trap designed specifically for those who manage to work hard enough to actually get a high-paying job. A trap that ensures even doctors, lawyers, and engineers remain financially enslaved until the day they die. Let us examine the invisible walls of the consumption prison. Let us assume for a moment that you beat the odds, you worked incredibly hard, you climbed the corporate ladder, and you broke through the mathematical ceiling of the minimum wage. You are now a senior software engineer, a specialized surgeon, a corporate lawyer, or a mid-level executive. You are making $200,000, $300,000, or perhaps even $500,000 a year. Society looks at you and applauds. Your family is proud. You think you have finally made it. But have you? Like, if we look closely at your personal balance sheet, we will find a terrifying reality. You are not rich. You are simply broke on a much more expensive scale. You belong to a demographic that the financial elite secretly laughs at, the Henrys. High earner, not rich yet. You have a high income, but your net worth is dangerously close to zero. You are trapped in what we call the consumption prison, and the invisible walls of this prison are built entirely by your own ego. How does a person making $300,000 a year end up living paycheck to paycheck? It happens through a silent terminal financial disease called lifestyle creep. Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. The financial equivalent is that your expenses will always organically expand to consume your entire income. When you got that massive promotion, you did not use the extra capital to buy your freedom. You used it to buy a more expensive cage. You upgraded the reliable Honda to a leased luxury European sports car. You moved out of the basic apartment and into a luxury high-rise with a rooftop pool. You stopped buying clothes to cover your body and started buying luxury brands to signal your status to people who do not even care about you. You willingly put on a pair of solid gold handcuffs. You think these status symbols make you look successful. But to an actual investor, they just make you look like a massive liability. You are not building wealth. You are simply acting as a highly efficient conduit, funneling money from your employer directly into the pockets of luxury car companies and real estate developers. But it gets worse. The consumption prison is not just driven by ego. It is driven by misery. We call this the exhaustion tax, because you are working 60 to 80 hours a week in a high-stress, high-stakes corporate environment. Your baseline state of existence is pure exhaustion. You are physically and emotionally drained, and because you are miserable, you feel entitled to compensate yourself. You tell yourself, I work so hard, I deserve this. So you willingly pay the exhaustion tax. You pay for the $200 massage because your back is destroyed from sitting in an office chair for 10 hours. You order $50 food delivery every night because you are too mentally dead to cook a basic meal. You book a $15,000 luxury vacation to a tropical island for 5 days, but you do not take that vacation to explore the world. You take it to medically anesthetize yourself from the trauma of your own career. You are buying short-term dopamine hits to numb the pain of trading your finite life for a paycheck. Your high salary is not making you free. It is merely funding the coping mechanisms required to survive your job. Look at the true masters of capital. Look at my own life. I am worth over $100 billion. Yet I still live in the exact same modest house in Omaha, Nebraska that I bought in 1958 for $31,500. I drive a normal car. I do not wear flashy designer clothes. I do not own a fleet of super yachts. Why? Is it because I am cheap? No. It is because I am ruthlessly rational. I understand that status is the ultimate enemy of wealth. Every dollar you spend trying to look rich is a dollar that cannot be deployed into the compounding machine. Every dollar you spend on a depreciating liability is a soldier that you've sent to die instead of sending it out to capture more territory. By keeping my personal overhead incredibly low, I bought my freedom early because my lifestyle costs almost nothing. I never had to make desperate financial decisions. I never had to swing at a bad pitch just to pay a massive mortgage on a mansion. I could sit in my quiet room, perfectly calm, waiting for the fat pitch. The consumption prison is a flawless, self-sustaining trap. The harder you work, the more stressed you become. The more stressed you become, the more you spend on the exhaustion tax. The more you spend on the exhaustion tax, the more you are forced to go back to work to pay for the lifestyle. You are just a hamster running furiously on a diamond-encrusted wheel. But the damage of this endless cycle goes far beyond your bank account. The true cost of this exhausting grind is invisible. It happens inside your brain. It destroys your ability to make the very decisions that could save you. And this brings us to the most dangerous phase of the poverty loop, the total collapse of your cognitive bandwidth. At the end of a grueling 12-hour shift, or after a week of surviving the relentless stress of corporate politics, you do not just experience physical fatigue, you experience a complete and total collapse of your cognitive bandwidth. And this is the exact moment the poverty loop snaps completely shut around your neck. Think of your brain like a computer or a smartphone. It has a finite amount of processing power, a limited amount of RAM. Every single decision you make during the day consumes a fraction of that mental battery. How to respond to an angry client, how to navigate rush hour traffic, how to pay an unexpected medical bill. It all drains your battery. When you are trapped in the cycle of wage slavery, you are constantly operating in a state of extreme scarcity. You are scarce on time and you are scarce on money. Behavioral economists have proven that living in a state of constant scarcity literally drops your functional IQ. It tunnels your vision. It forces your brain into a primitive survival mode. You stop thinking in terms of decades. You stop planning for the future. You start thinking in terms of days or even hours because your brain is desperately trying to survive the immediate present. By the time you get home at night, your cognitive battery is at 1%. You are in a state of neurochemical bankruptcy. You do not have the mental RAM left to read a dense financial report. You do not have the bandwidth to study tax law or analyze a real estate deal or build a scalable business model. And because your bandwidth is destroyed, you begin to make catastrophic financial decisions. Exhausted minds do not build wealth. Exhausted minds seek comfort. This is exactly why the hardest working people often fall for the most obvious financial traps. It is why the guy who just worked an 80-hour week will sit on his couch at 2 a.m. and buy a useless meme coin on a crypto exchange. His depleted brain knows that he cannot physically work another 80 hours. He is desperate. He does not want a 10-year compounding strategy. He wants a lottery ticket. He wants a magical escape hatch. It is why the exhausted middle manager goes to a car dealership and agrees to an insane 84-month auto loan with a massive interest rate. He does not have the mental energy to run the amortization math. He just wants to drive a luxury car off the lot today to feel a brief fleeting moment of success. He wants the dopamine hit to numb the pain of his daily grind. The system completely relies on your exhaustion. Your employer pays you a salary to rent 100% of your cognitive bandwidth to solve their problems, build their systems, and increase their equity. They want you leaving the office with a completely empty tank. A worker with zero cognitive bandwidth will never become a competitor. They will never have the energy to start their own firm. They will just wake up, drink a highly caffeinated energy drink, and come back the next day to run on the wheel again. Now look at how the true masters of capital operate. Why do I sit in an empty room reading books for 80% of my day? Why is my calendar famously blank? Because a blank calendar is the ultimate flex of the ultra-wealthy. I understand that my only real job is to make a handful of highly accurate, multi-billion-dollar decisions every year. That is my entire purpose. To make those decisions perfectly, my cognitive bandwidth must be protected at all costs. I delegate every mundane task. I avoid unnecessary meetings like the plague. I do not micromanage my CEOs. I refuse to let the noise of the market or the stress of daily operations drain my mental battery. When a massive market crash happens and the rest of Wall Street is panicking, sweating, and operating on zero sleep, their cognitive bandwidth collapses. They sell their assets at the absolute bottom out of pure terror. But I am sitting in my quiet room, completely rested and emotionally detached. I have a full battery. I step into the chaos with absolute clarity, buy up the best assets on earth for pennies on the dollar, and compound my wealth into the stratosphere. I win because my mind is fresh while everyone else's is broken by the hustle. You have been tricked into believing that being constantly busy means you are important. But in the world of true capital, busyness is a sign of poverty. It means you are still the machine. It means someone else is controlling your time. If you want to break out of this cycle, you must stop treating your brain like a cheap engine that can be run at the red line forever. You must ruthlessly reclaim your cognitive bandwidth. You must stop trading your mental clarity for a few extra dollars of overtime pay. But how do you actually do that when you still have bills to pay? How do you stop being the machine and start owning the machine? This requires a fundamental shift in your trajectory. It requires you to reach what physicists call escape velocity. You must transition from a laborer to a capital allocator. You must learn the exact blueprint to disconnect your income from your physical time once and for all. In the world of physics, escape velocity is the exact speed an object must reach to completely break free from the gravitational pull of a massive planet. If a rocket falls even slightly short of this mathematical threshold, gravity always wins. The rocket exhausts all of its expensive fuel, arcs backward in the sky, and crashes violently back to the surface. I want you to understand that your financial life operates on the exact same law of physics. The gravity of wage slavery is immense. The gravity of inflation, the gravity of taxes, and the gravity of the consumption prison are constantly pulling you down. To break free from this system, you cannot just paddle a little harder. You cannot just work a few more hours of overtime on the weekends. You need a violent, fundamental shift in your trajectory. You need to achieve financial escape velocity. The first and most painful step to achieving this velocity is completely shedding your identity as a laborer. Society has praised you for your hard work ethic since you were a young child, but you must realize that this praise is a psychological chain. You must forcibly transition your mindset from being a producer of labor to becoming a capital allocator. When a laborer looks at a problem, they ask, how can I work harder to solve this? When a capital allocator looks at the exact same problem, they ask, what system, what asset, or whose time can I acquire to solve this for me? The middle class views money simply as a tool to buy consumer goods. They buy luxury cars, expensive vacations, and designer clothes to impress people they secretly despise. But the ultra-wealthy view money entirely differently. To the true elite, money is exactly one thing, a mechanism to buy back their own time and to purchase the time of others. When you buy a luxury watch to flex on your coworkers, you are trading hundreds of hours of your irreplaceable finite life for a shiny piece of metal. When I buy a company, I am buying the collective lifespan, the intellect, and the physical labor of 10,000 employees. Those employees will now wake up every single morning, sit in rush hour traffic, and work relentlessly to make me richer. I am buying time. You are selling it. You might be sitting there thinking, I don't have billions of dollars to buy a major company. I am stuck. This is the excuse of a depleted mind. Financial escape velocity does not require $1 billion to start. It requires asymmetric leverage. We live in the greatest era in human history for building wealth because leverage is practically free. You have access to code, you have access to digital media, and you have access to global markets, all through the small computer sitting in your pocket right now. You do not need a massive physical factory to build an empire anymore. But to build it, you must start by plugging the leaks in your own life. You must stop paying the exhaustion tax. Stop buying expensive short-term dopamine hits to numb the pain of a corporate job you secretly hate. Take that capital and use it to buy back your cognitive bandwidth. Stop swinging your bat at every pointless pitch. Sit in a quiet room, protect your mental battery at all costs, and start laying the bricks for your own machine. Your machine can be a digital business. It can be a portfolio of cash-flowing real estate. It can be a carefully selected collection of dividend-paying stocks or a piece of automated software. I will warn you right now in the beginning, your machine will look incredibly pathetic. You will spend hundreds of hours building an asset, and in the first month, it might generate exactly $5. Your coworkers who just got a pathetic 3% raise at their safe corporate jobs will look at your $5 machine and laugh at you. Let them laugh. They do not understand the mathematics of compounding. They are playing a linear game of addition where their income is physically chained to their fatigue. You have stepped out of the matrix and into the exponential game of multiplication. Your $5 machine does not sleep. It does not take vacations to tropical islands. It does not get sick, and it never complains about working late. And if you relentlessly protect your cognitive bandwidth and keep reinvesting the output of that machine, that $5 becomes 50. Then it becomes 500, then 5,000. Eventually you reach the mathematical tipping point. Your machine begins to produce more passive cash flow than your basic cost of living. That is the exact beautiful millisecond you achieve escape velocity. Gravity finally loses its hold on you. You can walk into your boss's office, hand in your security badge, and confidently walk out the door. You will never have to sell another hour of your finite life again. The philosophy I have shared with you today is not about sitting on a couch and being lazy. It is about the profound, unshakable understanding that true power in this world comes from absolute control over your own time and your own mind. The corporate system is perfectly, flawlessly designed to grind you into dust. It will take your youth, it will extract your energy, and it will eventually leave you with a cheap gold watch and a fragile, underfunded pension. You can accept that script. You can wake up tomorrow morning, get back in your car, sit in traffic, and continue spinning the wheel until your heart finally stops. Or you can look at the cold, brutal mathematics of your life today. You can step off the hamster wheel, protect your mind, and start building the machine. The choice is entirely yours. Compound your capital, or let the system compound you. That's all. Thanks for watching.